I mean, I think that as I get older, I become very pedantic, and I have to confess to that, because increasingly, I only want to work with people like Tom. Tom and I have actually never worked together. We have shared a little bit of a book that I really very much look forward to. But I look to work with people like Tom. Someone I can speak about, for example, is Sarah Lynn Reese-Hardy. She's currently the director of the Spencer Museum in Kansas, in the heart of Kansas. Sarah Lynn is what I would also call you a citizen, curator, a citizen director. And her job is to turn patrons into citizens. She is first and foremost, how do you turn a patron into a citizen? And that takes also finding artists who are citizens, which is not easy. So it's really putting together a very particular mathematical equation, and I'd like to hear what Tom has to say, of a director that is committed to art as culture, art beyond the art world and art beyond the art market, but art as part of a culture, of how a particular people in a particular place, in a particular moment in time, portray themselves at their highest, at their most evolved, ideally. And so that it is and we talk about community, and community is a bunch of, I've worked with Sarah Lynn Reese-Hardy in Kansas with a bunch of evangelical Republican millionaire ranchers, and that was a community, that was a community. And so community, as a multiculturalism, it's kind of encoded as working class, poor, immigrant, but there's all sorts of right levels to community, and like you were saying, some of the communities that need the most education are these elitist communities filled with patrons.
It's super interesting, just to build on that Kansas example. One of the things that sociologists are telling us is that women, as they become older, become more radical, and men, as they become older, become more conservative. And so, in some sense, your point about the top 1%, it's probably the top 1%. It's such a tiny percentage, even in a wealthy country like this, let alone when you go to China or India or other places where that collector patron class is extremely small. But the seeds of their destruction, in a way, are the equality of women. And particularly, because this is a gradual idea, women controlling wealth. It's like only 100 years old, really. Even here, there are women in this room who can remember when a single woman of any ethnicity couldn't get a mortgage. This is within my own memory. So I think it is important to see how interesting social change is. I don't want to whitewash your point, because it's a super important point. But I think that as far as your education of patrons go, keep your eye on older rich women, because they get older, they get more radical, and those women are quite likely to be interested in the concept of citizen engagement.
Also good advice for the architect.
I think architecture is about something else. But that's, I think your point about this top small percentage is really significant. The banks, the brokerage houses, they all had huge collections. And they had huge influence on exhibition policies of major institutions. And there is a sense in which that kind of art, it would be very good PhD for somebody to take a look at. What was the Goldman Sachs collection? What was it? Because there is a sense in which that kind of art is, whatever the artist may have wanted, simply the ability to do more work, obviously, is a bit of a whitewash of that class reality. I believe it's a big point.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, before I came here, I came here from Occupy Roma, actually.
Which Barry was very excited about.
Okay, so Occupy Wall Street movement has formed a number of cultural splinter groups, including one called Occupy Museums. And today, about 50 or so people were in front of MoMA having a discussion about this, and it was actually very interesting. And what I find fascinating about the Occupy movement generally and about this conversation, this Occupy Museums conversation, is that it's not organized around protest. It's organized around dialogue, about asking these questions and sitting until you get actual answers, right? Because it's very interesting how hard it is to answer the question about the 1% who has all of the cards, right? And what I find really interesting about it also is that it's turning into its own cultural product. They speak their own. They use their own hand signals. They speak using the people's microphones. They just say 3 words and then everybody repeats it like a Greek chorus. Everything has a set of lingo. There's Zuccotti Park has a ton of infrastructure, and this is culture. This is a legitimate cultural product that has nothing to do with it, that is an answer to this question of elitism, and it's getting produced right now, and so instead of sitting in the gallery talking about, how sad it is that elitism is happening, we could all join this conversation. There's room for everybody there, and actually move that forward.
Thank you. I'm going to take one more question. Naomi, sorry, Priya, you had your hand up. Okay, 2 more questions. Naomi and then Priya. Were there? No, okay. Naomi and then Priya.
Okay, I'm curious to hear a little bit more how you see this book making a difference for either the patron, the artist, or the public, or policy. What's going to happen with the book that you've written?
Well, for one thing, we do have a website called culturalchange.ca, not .com, because it's not commercial, but .ca for Canada, because we're based in Canada. But culturalchange.ca, we're carrying on the discussion there and having some very interesting discussion. So we'll do, by all means, everybody should participate in it. What we feel about it is that we have, with the book, we have really we hope we have advanced the subject matter to a point where we're now consciously distinguishing between, and obviously we may not have got it right, and there's lots of other ambiguities here and details to work out, but we feel that it is a subject matter which is relevant, which is gripping, and as I say, something like the reality show is proof of that it is something that is now palpable as a subject that needs to be understood. Why does cultural change happen? How does it happen? And what are the roles of the various people involved with it? It's a sociology, if you like, that what is really worthwhile understanding, particularly, of course, because we see the ubiquity of it everywhere. Gail has just come back from China, where for the first time since 1966, those of you who know anything about Chinese history will know, that was the beginning of the Cultural Revolution. That was the last time that the Central Committee of the Communist Party of China, which has about several hundred people, it's a representative group from the whole country, they had their agenda in 1966 was culture. And they haven't had culture on their agenda since then. But this year, they had culture on their agenda. And they're really focusing on the need to go out to the world. Basically, the line of the discussion was, we're doing great on the economic front, on the material front, but we are lagging on culture. We're not punching our weight on culture. We need to, go on.
And also that the public lacks cultural values, that they become overly commercialized.
Yeah.
So that's actually, that's
Yeah,
really important.
That's a concern on my part. So what we think is that we managed to find
It's a cover for absolute crackdown on avant-garde, cultural production in China.
Yeah.
That's what cultural values means. I mean, this is why Ai Weiwei was thrown into jail. It's not.
Well, no, there's no question. I mean, look at the contradictions. You have the Ai Weiwei incident just a few months ago, and now you have the party putting culture on at the center of their agenda and making it their main message to the world for the first time since 1966. So I'm not saying this is a good thing or a bad thing or whatever, but I am saying that what we see is that once you start seeing the world in terms of cultural change, then it all starts to make an awful lot more sense. That there is this thing happening, and if we can start having the instruments to understand it, where are the artists, where are the patrons, where are the public, we really understand what a patron is, and understand centrally that role, because that's really most critical. It's very much misunderstood. I mean, the average newspaper reference to patron is totally useless, in terms of understanding. And as I say, there's confusion between, as Bart points out, confusion between the public, the consumers of culture and the patrons. But the more you get into it and understand it, then I think it really is a subject matter now which is very much alive. We're hoping to do more books along the same line, and we just see the information is just really coming in very fast.
We're going to do one last question.
No, it's okay. I can ask you afterward.
Okay.
Maybe I'll
Can I just say one thing?
Yeah, we should all do it.